there are a couple of things I want to reflect on from what you just said. And one of the things is what you said at the very beginning, where you talked about realignment, right? So, and it really made me smile when you said that word, because I don't know if you do this, but at the beginning of every year or at the end of each year, I set a new word or an anchoring theme for the next year. And my word for last year was alignment. But let me tell you something. You feel it in your energy, right? You call in, you feel it in your energy. That's the word for that year. And I remember last year was, shedding people out of my life, grief. And I remember kind of like August, and I'm like, where is the alignment? What is this? Where is the alignment? This can't be alignment, right? And I remember kind of November, definitely December time when I was doing like proper deep reflections. And I just remember sitting, and at that time, funny enough, I lived in Lapland in Swedish Northern in the Arctic. And I remember just sitting there, just like watching outside the beautiful snow, just beautiful setting to do that kind of work. And I just remember this like very peaceful energy that was like, all of that was alignment. All of those people being ripped out, exited, the discomfort of sabbatical, all of that was alignment. And this is again, it made me just be very, it kind of goes back to that saying, right? Be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. You don't know in what shape or form it's going to come. It's not promised that alignment will look, rainbows and whatnot. It's hard, and to be able and to have, the courage to lean into it and to really like stick with the process and walk through it. Yeah. And so the second thing where you also talked about communicating outwards, it really makes me think of, and I don't know if you've seen this little video, I think is basically this guy talking about how when a dog is, pregnant with puppies, the pregnancy lasts a couple of months, and the dog probably can, carry puppies maybe 2-3 times a year, because, those pregnancies are relatively short, and they give birth to, up to maybe 6 puppies. So it's, so when you go to someone and say, oh, my dog had puppies, they might be like, oh, that's cute, but that's about it, right? But then when an elephant carries cub, and they carry them for 18 months, and when an elephant gives birth to another baby elephant, it's something so spectacular that people turn around, people talk about it. I think you used the word, the whole earth shakes when that hits the earth, right? And it's just a very beautiful, and it gives me actually goosebumps. It's a very beautiful analogy to say that we don't always have to keep on churning and give out, half-cooked ideas. We do it when we are ready, when the idea is ready, and when the idea is ready to be born and brought into this world through us. And that's another, I guess, part of, discipline and pausing and resistance in some way that we need to practice.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though, as a person who's given birth, I can definitely say, whenever you're bringing in a new season and bringing a new part of life, it's a period of discomfort. It is absolutely something that, you cannot bring in something, you can't bring in a new idea, you can't birth out any kind of, new concept, new company without pain. It's going to happen. And I think it's an interesting thing how we adjust to that notion of that discomfort, how we become, acclimated to it. And we push through that, and then we can give birth to something that's a beautiful concept, that's a beautiful idea, it's a beautiful new company. Or maybe we don't. I think, being stalled in that part, being stalled in that discomfort part, it doesn't make it somehow more comfortable, right? It just lasts longer. I think there is so much that happens when you delay your own growth, when you delay, the lessons that you have from the things around you, when you don't process those. It just means you stay in that place of discomfort for a lot longer, it doesn't get better by itself unless you actually push through it. And I do think I've met so many different people in this past year who are at this point of, they could birth a beautiful concept. They could make some change in their lives. They could make so much better or different or new. But there is that fear of what is this discomfort and what comes afterwards. And as a person who's been pushing through to try to create something new, and as you are a person who's done that successfully in many different stages of your life, I can just say there's something beautiful. There is a more aligned life that you can get if you push through. And I really do hope that, more of us try,
Let me tell you something. I love the analogy of giving birth, since we are on this topic. I must say that, using and staying with this analogy, I'm probably in my postpartum, kind of like at the end of my postpartum, I would say, because you said it beautifully, because, we think that, birthing something new, it's done now. Great. Beautiful little thing, whether it's an idea or a child or whatnot. Right. But actually, that process of creating, carrying, nurturing, being pregnant with the idea, let's say that, right? Birthing it. And then also after, an actual, physical birth, there is a period of recovery. Sometimes that period is shorter. Sometimes that period is long. And it comes with, even more challenges than the actual pregnancy or the birthing process. So we also need to account for that birthing a new idea and putting a new idea out there that's not the end of that process. Sometimes that's the beginning of, the next process. And that process could be just as, or maybe even more uncomfortable and painful. And we don't know what we're doing and we need to figure things out and we are a little bit chaotic. And then, and after some time, when we gain the valuable skills and regain our equilibrium, then we can start, working with what's at our hands. And so we really need, and again, this goes back to what I said earlier, where the business ownership and entrepreneurship space is so fetishized because we don't talk about these things. That there are, the work is seasonal, the business world is changing. There was a research done, and not too long ago, that talked about the fact that I think it was like 80%, and don't quote me on this, but I think it was like 80% of business owners were saying that they now, in this, age of business, need to rethink their business every 3 to 5 years. So we are constantly rethinking, updating, pivoting, but that, with that pregnancy and postpartum stages are still part of that process, and we need to account for them.
Yeah. I think just even taking the analogy further, letting something grow. And that's a whole process in and of itself, right? So you're at a point where you're working with now startups and SMEs, right? I see in those areas, in those companies, 3 to 5 years, people are reinventing themselves 3 to 5 months for those early stage startups, those companies are really, they have to evolve and it's an existential challenge, if you think about it. It's like, the rate of growth for a fetus versus, a 50-year-old is very different, clearly at these points. You have to make certain that you're thinking about the growth that you have, the stage that you're in, and that you respect that. I think that's something where, once you do have this company that you have made, and I work with people who are oftentimes like HR folks, people who are founders of different companies. Maybe they just came in sometimes and, they want to do the culture work, and they're like, hey, we have set up this organizational culture. We've set up who this company is. We've set up how we work to be able to make sure that our culture lives through these things. And that was a wonderful approach for the 5-10 people they started off with. Fantastic. You've got now 50 people and your company is a different group of people. You have to evolve those things that you thought that you said, the things that you did, that are established and such. You have to think about, how does that grow for the new people that you have? How does that grow for, the new context that you have? How do those processes and how does, the way that you set out to work, how does it work for the new people and the future people that you're going to be bringing in? These are things where you have to understand there's always going to be reevaluation. And there's always going to be a point where you have to kind of consider and just have that inflection to be able to say, hey, this was great for us through this point. We're at a different point, or we're trying to go somewhere else. We're trying to do something else now. What do we need? And that is that kind of clarity and that wisdom I love to see in founders. I love to see that, and as well in like your executive teams for companies that have kind of evolved beyond the founder-led situation, to be able to realize that you're not just thinking about the track record that you've built. That's a great part of your story. That's wonderful. Think about your story continuing. All these are different chapters that you have, that you're authoring, that you're co-authoring with the people around you, and you're co-authoring with the people that you're building this business for. How do you make certain that you keep writing a great story, that you keep this in the right way? And I think that's something where, you're always going to have to keep reevaluating. And I love that process. And I love seeing companies work through it and people like you helping them through that as well. So beautiful things to see.
Hey dears. Okay, one quick note just to say this is actually part of a few chunks that you're going to get from this call with Baiba Žiga. Baiba is fantastic. I adore her. So I would definitely recommend subscribing so you can actually get a chance to be notified when the next part of this conversation comes out. Also, the full conversation is going to come out in about a week and a half or so. So stay tuned. That's coming your way. This is part of the series called Upward Conversations, which I have basically to encourage and support people who are making a positive change in the world or in the workplace. So if that happens to be you, I would love to say, hey, I'm so glad you're here and keep going. I really think you're doing great stuff. So let me know what you're up to. Let me know how I can support you. I want to help you and champion you in this way, okay? So hope to see you around, and yeah, have a great one. Take care.